Good morning and thank you for being with us here today. My name is Constable Marcus Anastasiadis, as a Public Information and Communications Officer with the Saanich Police Department. I would like to start by acknowledging that the District of Saanich lies in the territories of the Lekwungen peoples, represented by the Songhees and Esquimalt nations, and peoples represented by the Sartlip, Paquachin, Sayote, Sycom, and Malahat nations. Today, the Vancouver Island Integrated Major Crime Unit will provide an update of their investigative findings of the shooting at the Bank of Montreal on June 28th of last year. Some of the details they will discuss here this morning may be difficult for some of you to hear, as it could bring up memories of a tragic incident that still feels very recent. The order of events this morning will be statements read by RCMP Superintendent Sanjaya Wijayakum of BC's RCMP's Major Crime Unit, RCMP Corporal Alex Berube on behalf of the Vancouver Island Integrated Major Crime Unit, and Chief Constable Dean Duthie of the Saanich Police Department. Following these statements, we will then open the floor to some questions. So with that, I'll pass it over to the Superintendent. Sir?
Good morning, everybody. My name is Sanjaya Wijayakum. I'm a superintendent with the BC RCMP Major Crime Program. I oversee the Vancouver Island Integrated Major Crime Unit here on the island, also known as VIMQ. This morning we're here as VIMQ releases their findings into the armed robbery of the Bank of Montreal in Saanich. The events of that day left 6 Vancouver Island police officers wounded and 2 suspects dead. First, I want to say that my thoughts are with the staff of the bank and the civilians who were inside. I recognize what a traumatic day that certainly was. The Saanich Police Department Victim Services continue to offer support to anyone who needs it as a result of that day's events. I want to thank the brave police officers and the specialized units who put their lives on the line that day. Your actions and your courage that you displayed that day saved countless innocent lives. Of that, I am certain. To all the officers who were affected as a result, our thoughts are with you and your families as you continue on your road to recovery. What occurred that day will have a lasting impact on all those involved, both the officers and the community. We want to do our best to provide as much information to you to bring about a sense of closure without inciting others to take similar actions. On the morning of June 28, 2022, 2 male suspects entered the Bank of Montreal wearing full body armor and armed with semi-automatic SKS rifles. When the first officers arrived on the scene from the Saanich Police Department, there was an armed robbery in progress with 22 innocent people inside the bank. After an extensive and thorough investigation by VIMQ, we are now in a position to confirm that the suspects did act alone. They were prepared for significant violence, and they were motivated by anti-authority beliefs. Over 200 officers from various police agencies and units, including the Saanich Police Department, the Victoria Police Department, and multiple RCMP units were involved in both the initial response and the subsequent investigation. Corporal Berube is here to give a more fulsome explanation of VIMQ's findings. The criminal aspect of this investigation is now concluded, but we'll continue to support any of the agencies involved with their investigations, as well as the BC Coroner Service. Once again, I reiterate that we are here to support everyone involved and the community as well as we move past this terrifying act of violence and we work towards healing. I'll pass it over to Corporal Berube now.
Thank you, sir. Today, the Vancouver Island Integrated Major Crime Unit released their investigative findings on the bank robbery and attempted murder of Vancouver Island police officers by 2 individuals in Saanich in June of 2022. On the morning of June 28, 2022, 2 armed suspects entered a bank in Saanich with the intention of causing serious harm. At 11:02 a.m., 2 male suspects entered the Bank of Montreal branch located in the 3600 block of Shelburne Street in Saanich. Both suspects were balaclavas, were clad in full body armor, and were armed with semi-automatic SKS rifles. Officers from the Saanich Police Department responded to 911 calls from inside and outside the bank. On arrival, officers observed an armed robbery in progress and established containment of the area surrounding the bank. The Greater Victoria Emergency Response Team was in the area on an unrelated matter, also attended the call to provide support to the initial responding frontline officers. As the two suspects exited the bank, Jeevert members drove into the BMO parking lot and an exchange of gunfire occurred. The two suspects, who were both later identified as twin brothers, Issac and Matthew Auchterlonie, both 22 years old, from Duncan, were shot by police in the exchange and both succumbed to their injuries at the scene. Six police officers were also wounded by gunfire. 3 Victoria Police Department officers and 3 Saanich Police Department officers, all members of Jeevert. The officers were taken to hospital and treated to their injuries. The accusing conduct of the criminal investigation into the robbery and the attempted murder of police officers. The primary objective of the investigator was to determine if any other party or parties were involved in the planning and or execution of the incident. Despite previous speculations, there was no evidence found to suggest any third party was involved. It was determined the suspect's primary objective was to shoot and kill police officers in what they saw as a stand against government regulations, especially in relations to firearms ownership. The initial response and subsequent investigation included support from numerous police agencies, including the Saanich Police Department, the Victoria Police Department, multiple RCMP units such as Air Services, Major Crime Sections, Explosive Disposal Unit, and the Emergency Response Team. Multiple other police units were engaged to assist with a large-scale investigation, including the National Weapons Enforcement Support Team, the E-Division Integrated National Security Enforcement Team, and the RCMP Behavioral Analysis Unit, totaling over 200 police officers involved in this investigation. There were 22 civilians inside the bank who were bank employees as well as customers. Video surveillance showed the 2 armed suspects, clad in body armor, enter the bank at 11:02 a.m., prompting multiple calls to police. The suspects were inside the bank for just over 16 minutes. Surveillance footage captured them on several occasions going back to the front vestibule and looking outside before going back inside the bank. Surveillance footage also showed one suspect discharging his rifle inside the bank. The time spent in the bank and their actions made it apparent to police that the objective of the robbery was not to obtain money, but rather to generate an armed confrontation with police. Following the aftermath and in the course of the investigation, police learned calls had been made to police dispatch by witnesses shortly after the incident, with reports that a white van had been driving erratically in the area around the time of the robbery and shootout. These reports, it was later determined, had been sightings of the unmarked Jeevert van en route to the robbery and not affiliated with the suspects. Police did learn, however, the suspects purchased a vehicle a few days prior to the robbery and shootout, a white 4-door 1992 Toyota Camry with 2 distinctive black racing stripes from the hood to the trunk, registered to one of the suspects. In the trunk of the Camry, police discovered in excess of 30 improvised explosive devices, 4 additional firearms, and over 3,500 rounds of ammunition were also recovered. An NWIS analysis conducted both the suspects held valid possession and acquisition licenses for both non-restricted and restricted firearms. During the investigation, a CCTV video canvass was completed at hundreds of businesses and residences around the area of the shooting. In total, video was obtained from 52 different sources, including numerous numerous locations around the bank. This also included video spanning from the area near the suspect's residence and the path used by them to get to the area of the shooting. A search was conducted at the residence where the suspects lived. Multiple improvised explosive devices were located, as well as material used to manufacture the explosive devices. EDU members advised that the explosive appeared homemade and were not sophisticated. There was no evidence that the explosives had been obtained from outside sources, but had rather been manufactured by the suspects. The explosives recovered from the Toyota Camry closely matched the appearance of those found at the residence, and they appeared to be from the same source. While the suspects were not known to police, evidence at the scene indicated the suspects held strong anti-government, anti-police, and anti-authority views. Personal annotations were recovered expressing their outrage at the restriction of their access to firearm and body armor. Through careful analysis of evidence gathered, investigators believe that the suspect's original plan was to have a shootout in mid-2023 at an unknown location, but they moved up the date due to having to move out of the house in which they lived. The suspects concluded that they could not move their arsenal of weapons to a new location without attracting attention, and thus selecting the bank location at random. Copious amounts of evidence gathered from the scene of the shooting and the residence of the two suspects ultimately concludes that the two individuals were isolated from society and harboring deep-seated resentment and anger towards authority. The individuals had been plotting an act of extreme violence since at least 2019 and were fully prepared for the consequences. The civilians inside the bank, while directly threatened and traumatized, were never the ultimate targets of the suspects. The armed robbery was used to generate a police response with the ultimate goal of inflicting damage. The action of the officers on that day saved countless lives. And on that note, I'll pass the podium over to Chief Constable Bethy.
Thank you, Corporal Berube. Good morning, everyone. I'd like to start off by expressing my sincere thanks to you, our media contacts, for being here today. Your ongoing support, patience, and compassion has been greatly appreciated during this lengthy and complex investigation. I'd also like to acknowledge and extend my appreciation to the Shelburne Bank of Montreal staff and customers, the residents of Saanich, Greater Victoria, and throughout the province of BC for your patience and understanding as this important investigation progressed over the past 7 months. I know that many questions have gone unanswered until today, and it is my hope that the information that you now know can assist you move forward with a healthy degree of closure and clarity. Please rest assured that the outpouring of public support has had a tremendous and positive impact on police, emergency personnel, and the BMO employees and customers. For this, we are all very grateful. On behalf of the Saanich Police Board, the senior leadership team, and all sworn and civilian staff at the Saanich Police Department, it is my honor to express our sincere gratitude and appreciation to the RCMP and the Vancouver Island Integrated Major Crime Unit for the professional, thorough, accountable, and detailed investigation that was completed under stressful and challenging circumstances. It is important to recognize and to appreciate that the nature of this investigation was not only extensive and complex, as most VMQ investigations are. This one also impacted investigators on an emotional level. Their courage, mindfulness, resilience, and stress management were tested and retested over an extended period of time, which can have significant impacts to their personal health and wellness. The respective leaders of all police organizations that participate in the integrated VIMQ model have and will continue to support these investigators. I would like to conclude by stating the obvious. This is an event that we will never forget. That said, it is important how we choose to remember June 28th, 2022. At Saanich, we are encouraging our officers and staff to remember this day as one that innocent lives were protected and saved by police officers. In doing this, significant physical, psychological, and emotional injuries came as a result. This required us all to rely heavily on our vital partners throughout the region and the province, which include police, fire, ambulance, medical, and psychological professionals, to care for and treat officers and staff who are directly and indirectly impacted by this traumatic event. We will absolutely continue to support and care for each other throughout our personal, our team, and our organization's recovery. As we do this, we are taking steps forward together with courage, pride, and optimism to ensure that we continue to grow and strengthen as individuals and as a healthy organization that provides professional and caring police service to you, our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief, Superintendent, and Corporal. We will now open the floor to some questions. If you have a direct question for a specific officer, just please let us know. Okay, yes.
Hi. You mentioned that they were plotting an extreme act of violence since 2019. And I'm wondering if they had ever had previous interactions with police, if anybody, friends, family, member of the public, had ever made a report about them, and whether they were on your radar.
Thank you for your question. No, the original plan to have an incident confrontation in 2023 happened on June 28, 2022. The only reason why did this not occur was because they had to move out of their residence. These two suspects were not known to police. We had no indication to have them under our radar, so to speak. We had no reason to raise any suspicions for the police.
So the planning that they were doing in 2019 never came to your attention through members of the public or family members or anybody?
No, it is our understanding that the family was not aware of this. The planning, at least that was planned since at least 2019, evidence led us to believe that this was carried out on June 28, 2022.
Alex, how much ammunition did they have with them during the shooting, and where did they purchase this from?
We know that the ammunitions could have been purchased from anywhere. We know that these ammunitions were purchased legally, and they were well equipped with loaded magazines in their vehicle, and as well as on their person as well.
Do you know, can you quantify how many magazines or rounds?
I can say that there was over 3,500 rounds.
We've heard from your officers that these were two individuals who acted alone, who were isolated, no connection to others, no third person. However, these sentiments that appear to have motivated them, anti-government, anti-police, are something that are increasingly out there and available in social media and other spaces. Given what your forces have been through, how concerned are you about this kind of violence with that kind of motivation in this community and this country?
I think it's important to keep this into context to the fact that these two suspects were not known to police, and there was no indication that these actions were going to be carried out. So for that reason, I'm not sure what you're trying to ask
Doesn't
with
it
this?
doesn't that make it worse though? That there are people who feel like this, who have the tools and the ability to go out and carry something like this out, and there's no clues.
What we know, again, is police that day, whether they were specialized units or frontline officers, they saved countless lives that day. We had no indication that these two individuals were going to carry out these shootout right up until the evidence was uncovered during the course of the investigation.
That's not what I was asking though, because we see flags with the Prime Minister's name on it, and we see this anti-authoritarian sentiment. Is that a concern?
Yeah, it is a concern. So to answer your question, it's very concerning to us. So we do have some very specialized units who assisted on this investigation and potentially other investigations. That's our INSET, or it's our National Security Enforcement Team. And we also have within the RCMP a section called the Behavioral Analysis Unit. So when teams like that weigh in on these types of individuals, it gives us a little bit of maybe insight or a little bit of kind of foreshadowing to what might happen. So to answer your question, it is a concern for us. But we do have these specialized units who will assist teams like VIMQ or the Saanich Police Department or Victoria Police Department when it comes to these types of individuals.
So following up on her question with what you've learned, with like what we've heard about all that they learned through looking at their cell phones and everything else, is there anything that investigators or the behavioral unit has learned that they can look out for in the future? Because we've heard that there was no indication that this was happening, that they perhaps could thwart this if there's other brothers out there doing the same.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So in this specific case, from the very comprehensive investigation that VIMQ did, there weren't markers that we can identify that would have said, hey, listen, at an earlier time, we could have identified this possibly happening. But further to your question, there are some markers that the Behavioral Analysis Unit within the RCMP or INSET will provide to us that will give our investigators a little bit of a leg up when we're looking at these types of individuals when they first are coming to light.
I'm just wondering if I can, you can speak about the randomness of the bank that was chosen, the fact that it was Saanich, and I guess how fortunate it is that no civilians were hurt.
It was very, very random. So Saanich wasn't a target for them. The investigators from VIMQ have determined that they were simply trying to find a venue where they can start a confrontation with the police, and they happened to land on that bank in Saanich. That's how random it was. And without exaggerating, to the second part of your question, a lot of innocent people could have been injured that day. It's simply through the actions of those initial Saanich PD uniformed police officers who attended, and then the Victoria and Saanich ERT team who happened to be close by. If not for a combination of those two things, I'm certain innocent people would have been injured or dead, even though they were after the police.
What went through your mind when you realized that the police were the target?
Well, for me specifically, whenever I hear a police officer as a target, it really heightens my sense of there's going to be public danger, because if someone's going to be able to go after the police, they certainly would disregard public safety as well. So it was very, very concerning for all of us, for the chief, for myself at the front end, when we were able to determine that they were going after police officers. Very concerning for all of our members, but as concerning for the safety of the public as well.
And what's it like for police members' families?
It's incredibly difficult. I know that Chief Dati has been dealing with the families very, very closely, as has the Victoria Police Department's senior management team. It's been very, very difficult for all the families involved.
Could you update the conditions of the officers who were injured?
Maybe I'll pass that over to Dati.
Yeah, thank you very much for asking that question. And I actually had an opportunity to see many of these officers this very week. As we all know, there was significant physical injuries that were suffered on that day, and there are still officers that have not returned to work because of those injuries, and they continue to move forward in the recovery process. Now, I will say that those physical injuries, again, were extensive. They were life-threatening injuries, when they were suffered on June 28th and for weeks forward after that time. Their inner strength, their determination, and their grit has pushed them forward through extraordinary treatments, a lot of challenging times, and that's coupled with emotional and psychological injuries as well. These members continue to move forward day by day, step by step. We support them every moment and every step of the way, and we look forward to their full recovery whenever that does happen. Now, in addition to that, it's equally important to pay attention to the psychological and emotional injuries that were suffered by police this day, because these are equally as traumatizing, and we still have officers that have not returned to duty because of these injuries. The supports and services in place for them have been extensive, and again, our senior leadership team, as the Victoria senior leadership team, have stayed in regular contact with our officers who are away recovering from those injuries as well. And they are making significant progress as well. But everyone is on their own journey of recovery at different speeds, and we accept that and will embrace that and be with them every step.
How many officers are currently off duty as a result of what happened in June?
I can tell you from Saanich Police, we have currently 5 officers that are still off duty at this time. And again, at different stages of recovery, some anticipating return to work in a short manner.
Excuse me, can I ask a question? And forgive me if this came up in the technical briefing, but it's politicians who make gun laws. Was there ever a broader plan to involve anyone else but police? And was any of this based, remember the Hollywood shooting in the States, was it fashioned on any other kind of attack like this? And exactly what was the plan? How many police did they think they were going to kill, and exactly how? Inside the bank, outside the bank?
Yeah, I'm going to have to turn that to the BMQ.
I'll start answering your questions in reverse. How many police officers were they planning on killing that day? The answer is simple, as many as they could. It's as simple as that. They were there to inflict damage. The employees and the civilians inside the banks were not the target. They were clearly targeting police officers, and that's what their plan was. To you, the second part of your questions, part of the investigation is to explore different theories. However, the evidence uncovered throughout the course of the investigation could not find any particular link to make it any sort of drawing any type of parallel to that. And your first part of the question, can you repeat it?
I think did they fashion it on the Hollywood one? No. Did they gun laws? Any politicians, or was there anyone else ever in the formulation of this plan over years? Was it broader at any point? Was it always police officers?
What we know is that they were planning to conduct a large incident mid-2023. That incident was pushed ahead to that incident that we saw on June 28. We know that they held like strong anti-government and anti-police, anti-authority views. So this is what the investigation uncovered.
In residence, if I can just follow, did they live alone in that residence?
So they were living with their mother.
Their parents, but their parents weren't aware of the weapons?
The mother was aware that they had firearms that were obtained. They were legal, so there was nothing to raise any questions specifically to their mother.
Sorry, just wondering, I think the public might be surprised to learn how many of the weapons they were carrying legally. Can you just sort of run us through a list between, from the firearms and the body armor and the improvised explosive devices? What did they have that was legal? What did they have legally? And what was illegal?
So all the firearms that they were carrying were legal. Obviously, the IEDs that they were carrying were not legal. And the magazines which they had, in itself, the magazine is legal, but they had made modifications to render them prohibited.
What?
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry.
circling back a little bit, so what can you tell us about how you drew your conclusions about their anti-police and anti-government beliefs? I know it was a complex puzzle, a number of different factors. What can you tell us about how you drew those conclusions? And any insight into like what led them to those beliefs and why they held those beliefs?
Right, so again, as you mentioned, it was a very complex and lengthy investigation. And throughout the course of that investigation, some search warrant was conducted, some materials were uncovered, and evidence was then found leading us to what those beliefs and motives were. And your second part of the question was?
I mean, was there any evidence indicating why they felt so strongly in their beliefs, I suppose?
Again, we don't know that, and that's a human factor that we need to take into account. Is sometimes we'll just never know what went through a person's mind to carry out what they did, right?
Can I just ask, in the briefing there wasn't any reference specifically to them being angry about firearm laws, it was just broader about being anti-government, anti-police. So what indication was there that this was specifically motivated by anger about firearms laws?
Again, like the totality of the material that was uncovered throughout the search warrant and the evidence gathered throughout the investigation led investigators to believe that.
Did they leave a manifesto, a note, a video? What kind of evidence are you referring to?
Again, at this time, I can only say, for a couple of reasons, we have material that we've recovered that explain a theory of their motivations. However, we want to be careful with that information because we do not want to incite the public to conduct similar types of acts. So we just need to find the right balance between the information that we gathered and the information that we can share.
I wanted to ask, we know that, as I understand it, they modified the semi-automatic firearms, but the only thing that made them illegal was removing the serial number on one. They fired over 100 bullets in about 90 seconds at police. Does access legally to weapons like this cause concern to the police?
So these obviously, these are firearms that caused damage on that day, could have caused a lot more damage on that day. What we know is that those firearms were legal. The magazines were prohibited based on the ammunition capacity. So it is concerning if those firearms are used in a commission of an offense in violent acts like that, definitely.
For people who aren't familiar with magazines and firearms, can you quantify just how much ammunition these men had as they went into that bank?
To put it simply, they can put many. Investigators recovered over 3,500 ammunitions within the vehicle and with what they had on themselves. So it is definitely concerning. They had the capacity to cause a lot of damage. It resulted in some wounded officers, but not only wounded officers at the scene, but this is affecting every police officer that had some type of involvement from far or from close to that investigation.
And in French, if you don't mind, because I understand you speak French, would you mind explaining how you came to the conclusion, what led you to believe that their motivation was a confrontation with police in French?
La motivation des suspects a été révélée à travers le cours de l'enquête. Les enquêteurs ont réussi à trouver, si vous voulez, là, des items qui étaient en soi concernants, qui expliquaient aussi les idées ou les motivations que les suspects avaient, contrairement à leur vue anti-gouvernement, anti-police, anti-autorité. Tous ces documents-là ont été recueillis par la police et on doit être quand même assez prudent par rapport à l'information qu'on va relâcher au public parce qu'on ne veut pas inciter non plus le public à causer d'autres actes de violence comme on a vu le 28 juin.
Just wondering, police have indicated that the twins went to this event intending to die, or at least acknowledging that that would be the end result. Yet they still had more firearms and explosive devices in their vehicle. So what gives you the indication that they knew and intended to go there ready to die?
Again, the information uncovered, their motivations, and the totality of all the evidence collected throughout the investigation, again, just led them to believe that they didn't expect to pass on or move on past that incident. They were well equipped to cause a lot of damage. We are considering the whole situation to be lucky, for lack of a better word. Yes, there were some injuries. Luckily, no members of the public were physically injured in this incident, and we had members, police officers that were there from different units, whether it's specialized, whether it's frontline, all played a key role in stopping the threat and from stopping them from causing any more harm.
Is there any indication that they wanted to harm members of the public, or was it specifically police officers they were after?
There was no indication that the public was a target at all. Everything is leading investigators to believe that those suspects wanted to kill police officers.
You said that you uncovered evidence that suggested they were planning a bigger, more violent event in 2023 that got moved up. What was it that made you think that? Was it the presence of explosives at their house in their trunk, or what was it that led you to think they were planning something for this year?
Again, this is the investigation, the evidence uncovered throughout the investigation. The event that they were planning to do mid-2023 happened on June 28, 2022. This was the event. They were planning to do something larger. They had to carry out earlier, and this is the result of their plan.
What continued steps are, what's the future investigation look like, or do you consider it having reached a conclusion?
So these are the investigation findings. We wanted to know whether there was a third suspect involved. So that was the primary objective of MQ. And again, we're there to share what the motives were. There was a big interest in wanting to know what happened on that day. And the investigators worked night and day throughout a lengthy period of time to determine what those motives were, seeking assistance from different specialized units. Again, like we mentioned, the NWES, BAU, GVERT. I mean, there was over 200 police officers involved in this investigation, so we were making sure that no stones were left unturned.
Just a couple more questions, if we could, please. Just we heard some of this in the technical briefing, but if you could respond to this. Presumably, they would have thought that their first interaction with the police in this shootout they were hoping for probably would have been regular patrol officers, but they didn't get that. Instead, they got the SWAT team. That was a very different outcome because of that, the training, the weapons, and the posture that they had. Speak a little bit about how that probably saved the day here.
Absolutely. So the GVERTs, they were on a different operations on that day. They heard the bank robbery in progress. They were diverted to assist the frontline members who were able to set containment right away, helping protect the public from any further arms as well. So yes, it was a very fortunate fact that GVERT was in the area when this incident happened. Take a last question.
Did the investigation uncover any significance regarding the racing stripes on the car?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
The racing stripes on the car?
Yes.
Is that significant in any way?
It's significant in a way that when we first publicly released the picture, generated quite a few tips from the public. So again, it's something that I'd like to reiterate is the public played a key role in this investigation. So investigators were very happy with how much public support they received, and not only from the public but from the media as well, who helped share on social media the information. So all in all, police officers, the media, and the public all worked together to be able to present the findings of this VMQ investigation. Thank you.